Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into the complete testimony of Cassandra Ventura, Cassie, from that recent federal trial with Sean Diddy Combs.
Yeah, and our source material here is straight from the court, the verbatim statements made under oath. Inner City Press reported it all meticulously.
Exactly. So our goal for you, the learner, is to really pull out the most important, insightful bits from what is, frankly, a very long testimony.
We want to give you a clear understanding of the key allegations, the timelines, the sort of emotional weight of it all, but without drowning you in legal jargon. Think of it as your shortcut to being well-informed on this.
Right. We're working directly from the court transcript. It covered 4 days, May 13th to the 16th, 2025.
And it's worth noting, the version we're looking at, it had some parts blacked out for, YouTube rules.
Yeah, some redactions, but the core substance, that's still there.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So we'll unpack the relationship itself, 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
the specific things Mrs. Ventura alleged in court, how the defense questioned her, and try to piece together the main stories coming out of her testimony.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it's vital we remember. Everyone's presumed innocent until proven guilty. That's fundamental.
Absolutely. Okay,
Yeah.
let's dive in. Cassandra Ventura testified. Relationship with Sean Combs, 10 years. She's 38 now, a musician, entertainer.
And the age difference, that was 17 years.
Right. And she described the early dynamics, arguments that she said escalated frequently into physical violence.
Things like being dragged, hit in the head.
Yeah, she said it happened too frequently, resulting in black eyes, apparently.
That immediate pattern, if her testimony is accurate, arguments turning physical right from the start.
Mm-hmm.
It sets a really disturbing stage, doesn't it?
It really does. Then we get to this term, the freak-offs.
Mm.
The first time it was proposed, Cassie said she felt confused, nervous, but agreed. She wanted to please him. But these encounters, which involved paid escorts brought into their intimate life, often arranged by Combs, she said, they became frequent and unwanted.
And she felt she couldn't say no.
She testified she couldn't because she was afraid of his anger and something she called materials.
Which we later learn likely refers to recordings.
Exactly. This brings up that whole issue of consent, within a relationship where there's such a clear power imbalance.
Absolutely. Her testimony suggests this mix of wanting to please him, someone she was involved with, but also being afraid of what might happen if she didn't. That mention of materials early on, it hints at coercion beyond just, emotional pressure.
It does. And the prosecution, they had evidence to laptops, a drive, supposedly with communication.
Text A drive, yeah.
These freak-offs, she said they started early. First 6 months to a year of the relationship, she would have been 22.
Wow, so young.
The first one she detailed, it was at one of his places in L.A., involved a paid male escort. She knew he was paid, to dance and be with her.
Wow.
And drugs were involved, ecstasy, alcohol. They wore masks, masquerade masks.
The level of planning there is interesting. The drugs, the masks. It sounds almost like creating a performance or maybe detachment.
Could be. And the frequency, she said it ramped up weekly for
Yeah.
years, apparently, lasting until maybe 2017, 2018.
Weekly for
Yeah,
years.
that's what she testified. And the impact on her. She described needing to be high just to disassociate, feeling dirty, confused, humiliated, couldn't talk about it.
Like a job, she said.
Yeah, exactly. Like a job that took up all her time, no room for anything else. The longest one she remembered lasted 4 days.
4 days. That description, feeling like a job, it just highlights this complete lack of personal agency she's describing.
Totally. And she said she did try to stop them.
Oh.
Bringing it up gently, she said,
no.
because she was afraid of his anger. There were emails, apparently using the nickname Pop Pop. She'd say she didn't want to do it anymore. He'd acknowledge it, but then she testified she'd kind of backpedal out of fear of violence.
That fear seems pervasive in her account.
It does. And these things happened everywhere. Miami and New York, her own places sometimes, though not Studio City, she specified. Atlanta, Iowa. Various hotels, too.
The Trump, Gramercy, Intercontinental, Mandarin Oriental, Fontainebleau,
Yeah.
Blow.
The fact they happen in so many places, it almost suggests how routine or integrated into their life they allegedly became.
That geographic spread really does show how woven into the relationship fabric these alleged events were, occurring wherever they were. And the, coded language in the emails, that points to how hard it must have been to talk openly about it.
Definitely. The testimony also got into some really specific, disturbing acts alleged during these freak-offs.
Okay.
Supplies like Astroglide, Johnson's baby oil. She said he insisted she use it liberally, saying you need to be glistening. condoms, all sourced by security or his assistants.
Planned out.
Seems like it. And instances of candle wax being poured on her body a few times, she said.
Wow.
And she testified that these freak-offs were expected even when she had her period.
Unwantedly, presumably.
Unwantedly, yes. And that Sean urinated on her frequently. Also unwanted. She described it as disgusting.
These details, they really paint a picture of a significant power imbalance, a real disregard for her physical boundaries, as she describes it.
Exactly. Acts that speak to power, lack of respect for her autonomy, her comfort, the specific instructions about how she should look, like the baby oil thing, it just adds to that objectifying nature she described.
Yeah.
The escorts themselves, initially sourced from Craigslist, Backpage, directed by Sean, she said, she never reached out herself. And they apparently prioritized safe escorts, meaning not police, not people who would talk about it later.
Right, keeping it secret.
She mentions several, some by nicknames, the first escort, Jules, the Punisher, Greg, Jonathan, some descriptions like a guy with a red baseball cap backwards, an Islander, and some names or codes like 2A616, who she thought was Tommy, and Dave, who was Clayton Howard.
The careful vetting there, it really underlines that concern for secrecy, doesn't it? And potential consequences if it got out.
It does. And her saying she had no independent role in finding them just highlights her alleged lack of control over this whole aspect.
Right.
Drug use was almost constant for her, she testified, to disassociate.
What kind of drugs?
Ecstasy, MDA, Special K, GHB, mushrooms. She said Sean used drugs too, and sometimes the escorts. There were even emails about timing the drugs before the events.
Using drugs to cope. That says a lot about her state during these alleged encounters.
It really does. And afterwards, after the escort finished, she said Sean wanted her, like, immediately, her body in the next room. She didn't want that. Felt like an object.
That immediate expectation just reinforces that feeling of objectification she mentioned.
Sometimes, she said, he'd watch via FaceTime.
Remotely participating.
Yeah, and recordings, sometimes made on their devices. She said she'd delete them, found them disgusting. He apparently used his devices too. She asked him to delete them, but wasn't sure if he ever did.
That uncertainty about the recordings, that adds another whole layer of potential control and anxiety for her.
For sure. And one time at the Century City Intercontinental, she tried to leave early for a premiere.
Yeah.
That allegedly led to a physical assault.
So trying to assert her own plans was met with violence, according to her.
That's what she testified. It really highlights that alleged control, how deviations from his expectations could have serious consequences.
Yeah, underscores the lack of autonomy she felt she had.
And it wasn't just the freak-offs. She detailed other alleged abuse and control, too. Her music career, for instance.
Right.
She said Sean called all the shots. She had a 10-album deal, apparently, but after late 2006, nothing else was released. Hundreds of unreleased songs, 9 unreleased albums. And she wasn't paid for them.
That level of control over her professional life, that's a huge power imbalance extending way beyond just their personal relationship.
It really is. Allegedly withholding her creative work, no payment. It shows how relationship power can potentially control someone's career, their finances. He also allegedly commented on her looks. Said she looked too Mexican sometimes with certain hairstyles. Preferred white French tip nails. She felt body image pressure connected to the freak-offs. Financially, yeah, he paid for cars, gave her cash, but she said he'd also take things away depending on his mood. Staff, presumably told by him, would take her laptop, her phone, as punishment.
It paints a picture of really pervasive control, doesn't it? Affecting her looks, her money, even her basic possessions and communication. That kind of arbitrary power creates instability, dependence.
She described constant surveillance, too. Him sending security or assistants, David James, Christina Courtroom, were names mentioned to find her.
Wow.
And the relationship, it was non-exclusive. But Cassie admitted being intensely jealous of his public connection with Kim Porter. He'd apparently say things like, "I am Puff Daddy." When they moved to L.A., it was because he wanted to be near his kids. She lived at 875 Comstock. He was nearby at 200 South Mapleton. They used a golf cart to go between the houses.
That jealousy within a supposedly non-exclusive setup, it highlights the complex emotions, right? And even with separate houses, being so close just shows how intertwined their LA lives still were.
Yeah, it really does underscore those contradictions.
Yeah.
The appearance of being non-exclusive didn't just erase the emotional attachments or insecurities.
Right.
She also told this disturbing story involving Suge Night. During a freak-off in LA, Sean apparently drove to a diner where Suge Night was. Cassie was terrified.
Yikes.
And she mentioned guns, being handed one while she was high on mushrooms, seeing Sean and security leaving with guns. These incidents add this element of potential danger, unpredictability.
Absolutely. It layers on this sense of threat, reinforcing the idea that she might have felt unsafe in multiple ways in that environment.
So then the testimony got really specific about alleged physical assaults. The first one she mentioned, NYC, in a car, hit her side of the head, she fell.
Okay.
Then January 2009, LA, she spoke to a producer. Sean allegedly called her a slut. She hit him. He then, she testified, stomped on her face in the car.
Stomped on her face.
That's the testimony. Afterwards, she was taken to the London hotel for a week. His assistant, Genevieve, brought her ice cream. She felt trapped, couldn't leave because she was scared.
That is a particularly stark account. The alleged severity, the feeling trapped afterward.
Yeah.
It just underlines that fear and control she described.
She also described being beaten at a hotel after seeing BT executives bruising her face.
Okay.
Another incident involved Scott Mascotti, Kid Cudi. They had a brief relationship in 2011.
Right.
Sean allegedly found an email, something about Cassie taking her toiletry bag to Scott's place. His reaction, according to her, was extreme. Threatened Scott with a wine opener. Threatened to release videos, hurt Scott. Cassie came back to her hotel room, found it trashed.
Wow. That reaction to a simple email suggests extreme jealousy, possessiveness, and the threats about videos, that brings back the blackmail concern.
Exactly. Intense possessiveness, willingness to use threats, intimidation to maintain control. That's the picture painted. Connecticut, 2013. Allegedly threatened again to release a tape, this time on Christmas. Threatened to hurt Scott again. Her mother apparently photographed bruises on Cassie's back from around this time. She mentioned being bruised in Kingston, Jamaica. Las Vegas, September 2015, beaten up in their suite, she said, after she spoke to a producer at an after-party. Said he kicked her while she was hiding behind the toilet. Drock and James Cruz apparently stopped it.
So, repeated alleged incidents. Different places, different triggers, but a consistent picture of violence. And others potentially witnessing it, like Drock and James Cruz intervening in Vegas. That suggests it might not have been entirely hidden.
He seems that way. Then, before a music festival in Canada run by Drake, she claims he tried to attack her at her home, threw her into the bed frame. She has a photo of her eye afterwards, she said.
Okay.
Cannes Film Festival. Accused of stealing from his boat. Thrown off her passport still on board. Forced to sit next to him on the flight back to New York, where he allegedly showed her freak-off videos and threatened to release them.
That Cannes incident sounds incredibly alarming. The alleged physical removal, leaving her passport, then the psychological manipulation with the videos.
It's deeply disturbing. The passport detail really emphasizes her vulnerability, her lack of control there, compounded by the threat of releasing private stuff.
Yeah.
August 2018. A supposed closure conversation at a Malibu restaurant. She alleges he ripped her on the living room floor.
Even during a closure conversation.
According to her testimony, she also said escorts witnessed assaults during freak-offs multiple times. Blackmail was this recurring theme, threatening to release videos if she dated someone else. She feared her mother's reaction.
So the alleged pattern continued even as the relationship was supposedly ending. And using blackmail, that threat of releasing sensitive material, it's such a powerful form of coercion.
Definitely. There was an email shown July 22, 2013, Cassie asking for videos to be deleted because too many people had access to his devices. His alleged reply, no iCloud, all good ambient kicking in.
Kind of dismissive of her concerns about privacy and misuse.
Seems like it. Security's role also came up, intimidation, like at a restaurant with a DJ. She was also allegedly forced to kiss escorts, which she found too intimate, and pulled out of a club, the Blind Dragon, for a freak-off on her 29th birthday.
Just more details, reinforcing that alleged lack of respect for her boundaries, her privacy. The forced intimacy adds another layer to her account of violation.
So how did she cope? How did she try to end it?
Right.
She talked about taking drugs to feel numb after the freak-offs, getting massages, IV fluids. She suffered from frequent UTIs, too. After the relationship finally ended in 2018, she experienced sleepwalking, got diagnosed with PTSD. She kept a knife by her door in 2018 because she said Sean was coming around.
Wow. That indicates ongoing fear even after the breakup.
Yeah. And she described reaching such a low point she attempted to walk out into traffic. Her now husband stopped her.
That paints such a stark picture of the psychological and physical toll this allegedly took. Severe impact on her mental, physical health. Potential long-term trauma.
She went into trauma therapy, wrote a book about it all, hoping Sean would read it.
Yeah.
Then there was the 2023 lawsuit. settled very quickly, 24 hours, for a reported $20 million.
Right.
But she testified in this trial anyway, said she can't carry this anymore, and what's wrong is wrong. She even sent Sean a message after that final alleged incident in 2018.
What did it say?
Something like, "There was abuse more than freak-offs. There was a time I couldn't take the pain, tried to walk out in traffic, my husband wouldn't let me. I had trauma therapy."
That decision to testify despite the settlement, it really underscores the impact, her desire for her story to be heard. It suggests it went beyond just the money for her. That message is incredibly direct, powerful.
It is. Now, okay, let's shift gears a bit. We need to look at the defense's cross-examination. Their strategy was clearly to challenge her credibility, maybe paint a different view of the relationship.
Right. They really emphasized loving messages, actions towards Sean, asking things like, "You loved Mr. Combs, correct?" Her answer, "I did for 11 years.
They suggested she cared for him, took care of him sometimes, pointed out she called him Sean, not his public names.
And they kept coming back to the idea that she kept returning to him for 11 years,
Mm-hmm.
implying she had agency in that.
Mm-hmm. They asked if she believed he loved her. She said, "I did believe he loved me too."
Legally, the defense is trying to create reasonable doubt here, right?
Well,
Suggesting it was maybe more complex, more reciprocal than her direct testimony portrayed, not just abuse and coercion all the time.
exactly. They pointed out her jealousy when he cheated, showed loving messages from early on.
Like, "I love you, smiley face. I'll fly anywhere for you. I love you, Cass."
Yeah, stuff like that. Other messages about affection, intimacy, like, "We are so in love, we don't do anything else."
Mm-hmm.
They showed messages where she expressed hurt, wanted attention, and messages saying, "I love you so much, you make me a better woman," and even, "I can't wait until we have a baby of our own."
Even though he already had 6 kids then.
Right. These messages definitely offer a contrasting perspective. Moments of apparent affection, wanting a deeper connection.
Yeah, the defense is using these strategically, suggesting mutual affection existed, that maybe she had her own desires and expectations in the relationship too.
Then they brought up explicit messages about the freak-offs allegedly initiated by Cassie.
Such
They're
as,
like, "You mean weekend or weekday, either is fine." Her agreeing to them, suggesting Jules as an escort. Messages showing apparently enthusiastic participation in planning.
"I can't wait either." You wrote, "I feel like I want to."
Exactly. Her offering to get supplies, set up the room, asking about pills.
These messages are obviously significant for the defense. They seem to show her actively involved, maybe even initiating parts of the freak-offs, directly challenging the idea they were always forced or unwanted.
Yeah, suggesting a level of participation they're likely using to question her whole narrative.
Mm-hmm.
There was one message where Cassie wrote, "I need to feel this is my husband, the only one who will see this side of me." The defense framed this as maybe intimacy, or her controlling the narrative somehow. They asked if she feared he only saw her for sex. She admitted that was a concern. The relationship's secrecy was highlighted. They even asked if freak-offs were, quote, "important, integral to us."
So suggesting these activities might have been part of their shared dynamic, and her feelings may be more complex than she first said.
Right. Trying to establish she might have felt some intimacy or agency within that context, at least sometimes.
Okay.
The defense also brought up other things. Britney Spears, Dallas Austin at her 21st birthday, connections through Sean, a rough performance early in her career, Sean publicly supporting her after, a tattoo of an ex-boyfriend's initials.
Kind of random details.
Seems like it. Maybe trying to humanize Combs, suggest a more supportive dynamic at times. They even suggested he taught her oral sex, showed messages where she seemed to feel protected, expressed care for him, questions about the wigs and masks during freak-offs to hide identities, messages about her period when arranging to meet for sex, questions about her watching him with other women. They suggested she kept the freak-offs secret from friends. Highlighted times Sean encouraged her, called her a queen.
Again, painting a more nuanced picture, showing alleged support, positive feelings from her towards him.
Right, and messages suggesting she initiated contact when horny and bored after a freak-off. Ones where she said, "I love our FOs when we both want it," and expressed wanting to freak out, showing her agreement, enthusiasm for planned ones, hotels, supplies.
They mentioned a game, too.
Yeah, some role-playing thing during sex to rekindle romance, apparently. The defense kept hammering these seemingly positive messages from her about the freak-offs. It was a key strategy.
Absolutely. Directly challenging the narrative of them being consistently unwanted and abusive, suggesting times she was a willing, maybe even enthusiastic participant.
They also asked about her knowledge of his other relationships, Kim Porter, Gina, her reactions, upset arguments.
Okay.
They suggested Sean suspected her of infidelity with Scott Muscati and NFL player Chris Brown.
Turning the tables a bit.
Seems like it. And they played a specific audio recording, a voice threatening Cassie, saying, "If you don't show me, I will kill you, cut you up, I will and kill you." Cassie confirmed it was her voice on the recording.
Wow, okay.
That's
Unexpected. Introduces a very different element to her portrayal.
definitely. They also asked about her own drug use, rehab experiences, exploring potential motivations and consistencies, suggesting the relationship had issues on both sides. They highlighted a message where Cassie suggested freaking off with a girl, mentioned her deciding to break up and Sean suggesting couples counseling, showed messages after the final alleged incident where she expressed anger about his relationship with Gina.
So showing continued interaction and complex emotions even after the alleged abuse.
Right. They questioned her about an alleged rape in September 2018. She denied remembering the specific dinner being strange. They showed later affectionate messages, her saying she still loved the past, messages showing she still desired connection, intimacy, even after saying she wanted to break up.
It does complicate the narrative, showing a range of feelings, continued connection, even amidst conflict and her allegations, potentially undermining the idea of a totally clean break in her feelings towards him.
Then there was that FaceTime call with her now husband during consensual sex with Sean.
That's a very striking detail. The defense likely used that to challenge the narrative of a completely non-consensual, abusive dynamic, suggesting real complexity in their interactions.
Yeah. They also showed messages after Kim Porter's memorial, Cassie feeling hurt, secondary. A final message from Sean calling her my ride or die, her positive reaction then. And a message from Sean after they separated, suggesting freak off one last time. Cassie's response was ambiguous.
Ambiguous how?
Something like, I don't want it to be the last time I want freak off for the first time.
Open to interpretation.
Very. They questioned why she canceled her tour after filing the lawsuit, asked if she'd return the settlement money to get her agency back.
Raising questions about her motives, the nature of the relationship, even after the alleged abuse ended.
They got her to confirm she was initially open to freak-offs, but later said she didn't want them anymore. They explored career opportunities she got through Sean collaborations, producers, highlighted her close relationships with his staff, like Drock and Mia.
Trying to show the relationship wasn't all negative for her, that it had advantages.
Seems that way. Adding complexity, suggesting potential benefits. They also confirmed a recent settlement she made with the Intercontinental Hotel. And she explained she kept her old devices because she was afraid of what was on them.
Okay, so that was the defense's angle.
Yeah.
What about the prosecution's redirect? How did they respond?
Right. The redirect aimed to give context to the defense's points, that ambiguous last freak-off response. Cassie clarified she meant she wanted it to be the first time in a new, healthy relationship.
Okay. Offering a different interpretation.
Exactly. She acknowledged, yes, there were periods of kindness, love from Sean, but stressed they didn't last. There was always a downswing. She described him opening up a world of chaos.
So, reestablishing the overarching narrative of abuse, control, suggesting good moments were mixed with the bad, and her feelings evolved.
She stated that when she sent those messages the defense used, she only wanted to have sex with him. She explained how she could cancel work for freak-offs if he told her to. Her disbelief when he claimed he didn't remember incidents. She talked about seeing him with other people after Con, retold the story of him playing a sex video, threatening its release.
Reinforcing her core allegations, her state of mind.
Yeah. She affirmed her fear of saying no to freak-offs, said she had no doubt he abused her. Explained that FaceTime call it was during consensual sex, but after the alleged August 18th assault.
Directly addressing key defense points, trying to put them back into her context of alleged abuse and coercion.
The tour cancellation. She said it was because dealing with the past after filing the lawsuit was just overwhelming.
Understandable.
She repeated she'd be willing to return the settlement money to regain her agency, even if the freak-offs hadn't been forced. She confirmed abuse happened during them.
That willingness to return the money, even hypothetically, it does underscore the importance she places on her agency, the impact beyond just finances.
She emphasized she did communicate she no longer wanted the freak-offs, her fears about refusing safety, career, love. Confirmed she understood they were his preference, part of being his girlfriend. Explained the videos were on her old devices.
So, directly countering defense implications, reinforcing her side.
Right. She acknowledged the career opportunities, access to producers the relationship might have given her, but reaffirmed she was self-conscious about her talent, remembered a bad early performance, confirmed she was close to dropping Mia, said she felt overwhelmed after filing the lawsuit, confirmed the intercontinental settlement, and repeated. She kept the devices out of fear of the contents.
So the redirect essentially acknowledged the complexities but didn't back down from the central claims of abuse, control, and her ongoing concerns. It provides a more complete picture.
Exactly. So, wrapping this up for you, the learner, the key takeaways from this really deep dive into Cassandra Ventura's testimony. It's these central allegations. A decade-long relationship she describes as marked by significant control, repeated abuse, and these frequent, unwanted freak-offs.
But that's set against, as we saw, moments of affection and some really complex dynamics that the defense cross-examination brought out. The sheer amount of detail and the emotional weight of her account is, well, it's undeniable.
We know this was sensitive stuff, maybe upsetting to hear about.
Yeah. What's really striking is just the level of detail that came out. It gives you these profound insights into the power dynamics allegedly at play in that relationship. We hope this summary gave you a clear understanding of the key parts, without being too overwhelming.
This case, it really does force us to ask important questions about power, consent, the incredibly complex ways relationships work, especially under the spotlight of the entertainment industry.
Definitely. And maybe consider the wider implications. What does this testimony mean for how we see celebrity? Control in relationships, the long-term impact of these kinds of experiences. How does it change things when private lives intersect so deeply with professional power and public image?
Yeah, it really invites more thought on just how multifaceted this case is and the bigger societal conversations it touches on.